So my parents sent me a birthday card that took over 20 days to get from Cape Cod to Delray Beach. Now I know what they mean by snail mail. That card was actually delivered by snails. That's why it took so long. We promise to move much quicker as we keep pace on the Back9. True story.
Really?
True story.
20 days.
20 plus days. Because I actually
appalling.
looked at the postmark on it and I was like, you know how you have that feeling like it's not that you want a card. I don't think my mom's ever missed my birthday or card. My mom and dad have never not sent me a card. So it was one of those things where something happened, but you don't ask. You don't like, where's my card?
Right.
You don't do that. So you just wait. So she asked me, and I'm like, I have no idea what happened. And then it showed up like a week after she asked me, and it was 20 plus days later. And I'm like, because I looked at the postmark, there was no tricks here. It was sent on like the 26th of April, and it arrived on the 20th of May.
Well, it must have been even more surprising when you opened it up and it said Happy 47. Which would have been a few years ago.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah, that would have been real snail mail delivered by snails. Anyway, we have an amazing Father's Day edition coming up. We've got a big surprise for our audience.
Yeah.
But this has been an outstanding season. I mean, I know we always say that, but it started with a great dad as we celebrate Father's Day with Brad Faxon. And what I found most compelling about that episode is everybody's like, wow, you had this golfer on. That's amazing. And the best part about it was him talking about his daughters. Right?
Absolutely.
Like,
we did talk a little bit
about golf.
This whole thing is wrapped in a golf package, even though we really rarely talk about golf other than we're out there playing and we're promoting. But we did have a former PGA pro, a current golf broadcaster. And right. I mean, the whole idea is these are people who are living lives regardless of what they do. If they're pro golfers or energy healers or rock stars, right? They face a lot of the same issues and challenges that us regular 42 regulars do.
And he didn't fix my putting.
Well, that's not surprising. I mean, you've tried everything. What's your latest?
Well, I haven't tried everything. I'm about to, and I can't believe I'm saying this. And I keep saying, like, I'm Bernard Longer or Adam Scott, because those are the long putter guys. Yeah. Not that I'm some old idiot that can't swing a putter normally. So I'm getting I'm going to test drive the long putter.
Did you just call Bernard Longer an old idiot?
No. I'm an old idiot. Those are really good golfers.
Okay.
And I'm saying, like, most guys with the long putters are like just 20 handicaps, right? They're not those guys.
Right.
But I'm trying to compare myself to those guys.
Well,
which is
right.
Which is a little rough.
But you're very in between because you're a very good player. I mean, you're not anywhere near as bad as a 20 handicapper. You're not anywhere near as good as Brad Faxon. Few people are.
Right. So anyway, I'm going to give this thing a shot, and we'll see where it goes.
I'm eager to see this in person.
Enough golf talk. And then we had Tracy McDonough, this season with the Integrative Health and Wellness. If you haven't listened to that episode, it is a must listen because it is, whether you believe in that type of medicine, holistic healing, or not, you're going to learn something.
Right. And then we had the front man for a speed metal band. And then we had a guy who has founded a spirits company. And so I think what's interesting about this season so far is the breadth of what all of these people do, right? They're all different. And as our audience continues to grow, what we're finding is what I've heard back then is, I don't know if you've heard the same, everybody has liked all of these episodes to a certain degree. I mean, a lot. But there have been different people say that different individual episodes have really spoken to them. A lot of people told me that Tracy really spoke to them about being in a holistic wellness space. And other people said it was really neat to have Matt Hafey on because of how he pursues his interests and how he's gone from a guy who's a rock star to having all of these other diverse pursuits that he is making happen. And so I think that's interesting for our audience and for me as a host. I think for you to be able to touch all of these different areas.
Well, with Matt, I have a new workout mix. That heavy metal stuff is good to work out to. So that trivia music, I really had no idea. And I had no idea how big they were. I mean, we posted a reel that had over 7,000 views.
Yeah.
That's huge. And that was all because he shared it. So his following is just tremendous. I mean, even Janine, our producer, said her niece loves them, right? So it brought in a new audience.
Well, and I don't know if you know this story, but I was in the weekend before that episode dropped, I was in Colorado and I was hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park and we bumped into this younger couple, I'm guessing early 20s, mid 20s. And the young woman was wearing a Trivium sweatshirt.
That's crazy.
And I said, is that the band? And she said, yeah. I said, you guys are fans? And she said, yes, we are. And I said, well, interesting. We have this podcast with Matt coming up in a couple of days. And they're, oh my God, we're going to listen. So that it does indicate. And yet, in spite of their success, Matt is such a down-to-earth, grounded guy, right? So,
yeah. He's not what you picture as a heavy metal band lead guy, right? He's not like 80s hair band stuff.
Right. He's not David Lee Roth. He's not Ronnie James Dio, right?
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's been great. And I think, to your point, I think podcasts in the world, if you're trying to appeal to the same person every week, you're probably going to fail. And I think what we've done is there's going to be different people, different week that like different episodes. I mean, that's probably the nature of what we're doing. The Back9 isn't the same for everybody.
That's right.
We're all different. So we need to kind of press buttons at different times.
Find different things that interests different people.
Yeah.
And that really feeds very well into today because this is a very different episode also.
We got a couple of really cool dudes. I don't know, like... Really cool.
You think they're cool?
I think they're cool
fun.
dudes. They're cool dudes.
Cool?
Cool dudes.
All right.
We got both our dads here, and this is a Father's Day edition. Father's Day is coming up this Sunday, and we're excited to have you. My father, Alan Williams.
It's really great to be here, and I think I speak for Steve and myself when I said we're very proud of you. We think that the podcast is fantastic. You guys are knocking it out.
That's the entire reason why we brought you in.
Yeah,
for
thank you very much.
Thank you for feeding our vanity.
Thank you very
Alan. I
much.
appreciate that.
You got to introduce your dad.
My dad, Steve, came in from Chicago a couple of days ago. So we're getting to spend all of the weekend together. And so this is your first visit. Have you ever been in a podcasting studio before?
Of course not.
Yeah, he's like, are these headphones?
Right.
No,
is this the microphone? Is this the microphone?
I feel like a star being here.
Yeah, well, you are, for sure.
That's awesome. And my dad came in from Harwich. We've talked on the show a lot. In fact, this season we talked about how I'm from the Cape because Brad Faxon grew up playing in the next town over from us. So Dad, Harwich has been almost 50 years. You've lived in Harwich, so almost all of my lifetime. We moved there when I was 7 years old. So can we start there? Because it's a really incredible story. Like what I remember as a 7-year-old with my dad is, and I think I'm like a little bit driven by this. So my dad had a fairly successful restaurant business in Virginia, but he and his brother decided to pack up their families and move to the Cape. And my dad didn't even have a job. He just wanted to live on Cape Cod. He'd spent summers there as a kid going to Kent prep school and then spent summers there from the time he was on 8th grade on. That's when parents used to just let you go work when you were like 12. So he would go work on the Cape all summer. And he just decided in his, 31 years old, 30, God, that was quick math. 31 years old that you would go to the Cape, pack up your kids. And I remember you were already there and Mom drove us to the Cape. I was 7 years old and we just moved there. No job. Yeah, how'd you do it? How did you do that?
Well, I arrived on the Cape and I went to a local bank because I found a house I wanted the family to live in. And we didn't have enough money, so I needed to borrow about $20,000 somewhere because we're selling a house in Virginia. And I went to this bank and they pointed to an office, and I didn't know it at the time. But I'm sitting down next to the guy who was the president of the bank, Cape Cod 5, now the largest bank on the Cape. And we talked for about 15 minutes, and he said to me, do you have a job? I said, no, but I'll have one tomorrow. He said, he gave me the mortgage with a handshake. And out I left, and I came back the next day, sat at his desk. I said, I got 2 jobs, but I know which one I'm going to take.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Make that happen.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, you got into the home improvement business as a sales guy, right? And
yes.
So you went from the restaurant business to just selling home improvements, windows, side additions, and there's a great story around that. So you take everybody's scraps. This is a scrappy story, right? I just want to tell that one real quick, and then we'll move around here.
Well, we rotated, there were 3 or 4 salesmen in the office, and we rotated leads. And I was the new guy. So the other people all wanted the good stuff, like the bathrooms and the kitchens and the roofs and the siding and all that. But a big part of the business was storm windows and storm doors. So they'd throw them the little leads at me, like I was a rebel. Here, you take this. So I would collect them all. And I'd go to P-Town, Wellfleet, Truro for a whole day. And I'd sell them all. And they'd sit in the office waiting for the good leads to come in.
Right.
So I don't know who came out ahead,
and the little stuff leads to big stuff, right? Like that was always the story too. So,
Yeah, and so the shapes of lives are very, very different. And I mean, Dad, you born and raised in Chicago, lived your whole, for the most part, adult life in Chicago. Went to New England for college and for law school, and then lived briefly in Kansas City, and then moved back to Chicago when I was on the way. and a life as an attorney, but started on the government side, and then crafted a career from there, which in law has changed several times over the course of your life.
Well, you've got the biography, right? I was very lucky. I grew up in Chicago, and although my parents divorced when I was young, everybody stayed really close. I was very close to my dad and my mother remarried, and my stepfather was also wonderful. But what was interesting for me at that stage, if that's what we're talking about, is that the two sides were wildly different. My father's side, my father was okay economically, but the family was very poor and very left-wing kind of people. And my mother's and my stepfather's side, we lived in an upper middle class, pretty wealthy community in Highland Park, which is a pretty wealthy suburb in Chicago. And so I got to appreciate from my mother's side the good stuff of life, but I got to see the other side too.
That's good.
And I learned stuff from both of them.
Like what? What did you learn? Who were some of your mentors, and what did you learn kind of early on?
The first thing I'd say was I learned it isn't inevitable. I think kids who grow up wealthy might think it's inevitable. I knew it wasn't inevitable.
Inevitable that they would stay wealthy.
That they would stay wealthy and that I would be wealthy and that I would necessarily
have money.
Have money and grow into something that they did. And the truth was, I preferred my father's side in terms of spirit and what they stood for. And I think that led me in a good way. I really do. It led me to value education and to get to do the things I eventually thought I was good at.
Did you find those to be, as you made your way through adult life, in conflict? I mean, I recognize that they were not necessarily in sync, the kind of spiritual, intellectual thing that you're talking about and the material thing that you're talking about on the other hand. But did they ever conflict with each other?
Yes, they definitely did. And in the end, I chose sort of a middle ground because when I was in college, I didn't know whether I was going to teach. I thought I might teach college. I loved history, but I thought I could be a good lawyer. And the thing was, I needed to know or to have a good idea that I would be okay economically.
Right.
And I wasn't so sure about teaching. And so I chose law school, and yet I was still able to keep most of my values from my dad's side of the family.
You guys have some similarities in that because your parents had money too, but you never grew up thinking you were going to, it was never promised to you that you were going to have that money. You had three brothers and you guys were all sort of on your own. I mean, you were sent to prep school as an eighth grader. Like you were working summers, like working your tail off. So there is that similarity, is that it wasn't inevitable for you either, was it, Dad?
Not at all. I think I started working at about 12, mowing lawns and caddying. And I do think the smartest you have to be is when you're going to shovel about a foot of snow and you knock on a door and the little old lady says, "How much is it?" And you say, $250. Well, you're going to shovel that snow for $250 and not 1 penny more because you already told her $250. You're not even going to try to get more.
Yeah, right.
You better be a good estimator too or know what your time's worth. So I did little odd jobs like that all the time, mowing lawns, caddying, whatever, until I was old enough to get a car and go to Cape Cod. And like Dennis told you earlier, worked on Cape Cod every summer. So
did you find that having that early experience, being able to set your worth in an early job, helped you set your worth for jobs throughout the course of your life?
I think it teaches you the value of a dollar better than any other way you can learn it. Like if you earn a dollar yourself, you understand what it is. If somebody else gives it to you, you don't.
Yeah.
Did you make sure that he had that?
Oh, he definitely did. I told the kids, this is my favorite story. I told the kids, I'll buy you good sneakers. They cost about, when he was a kid, about $29. That's what I'm willing to pay. You want the Michael Jordans that are $129, you come up with the extra $100 because I'm not. I'm going to buy you good sneakers, but I'm not doing it.
I'll tell you two quick stories about the work ethic I learned from him. One was we lied to the Cape Cod Times and told them I was 12 when I was 11, so I could start my paper route as an 11-year-old. The other thing that he did was you had to be 12 years old to get on the golf course at Cranberry Valley, and I caddied for him for free. He wouldn't let me play golf until I caddied with him enough, so I learned the etiquette of the game. So I was an 11-year-old caddy for him. You probably gave me some ice cream afterwards or something. So those are the work ethic stories for me where I was grinding as an 11-year-old.
And what's interesting, and my situation was a little bit different. I remember, Dad, you said to me many times when I was thinking about getting a job in high school, you'll have all your life to work. Don't work now. So I want to hear about that philosophy, but you still
You
instilled
rich Jewish kids.
right. No, but the but to this is, but still instilled a work ethic in me. Some of which was probably just me genetically, but some of it was certainly following your lead or other examples about pursuing excellence. So talk to me about that philosophy.
Yeah, it's something I haven't thought about until you just asked. Not recently, anyway.
Well, I didn't want to look like a layabout after he was working from the time he was 11 with his knees bloodied from being whatever my hard labor he was doing while I was out gallivanting.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I couldn't help myself being something of a spoiled brat because of the situation I was in. But for myself, I really learned perseverance and hard work at the golf club. I practiced from morning till night. I never gave up. I wanted to be the best 11-year-old golfer, and I wanted to be the best 14-year-old golfer. And I think that really helped me, believe it or not. The only job I ever had before I really had a job was 2 days a week at my stepfather's office, and he had like 300 women in the middle of the office. 150 of them sent out premium notices, and 150 took in the money. And my job was mostly to listen to the Cubs games back in the mailroom. That was my hard job. But the golf thing sounds funny, but it really helped. And my mother did instill, at least philosophically, hard work and especially education. I mean, I got pushed in that direction. As for Josh, I don't recall that he had much in the way of jobs, although I do remember some. I remember in Wisconsin, one summer you had a job. And
waiting tables in the summers. I refereed youth hockey in high school.
But he got a lot of perseverance in other ways. Hockey was incredibly demanding, and I wasn't quite a hockey father, but we were pretty demanding about that. And he wanted to be great. I don't think he ever quite reached great. But
at golf or hockey?
At hockey.
Okay.
I achieved way beyond, because of the work ethic that you guys instilled, what my modest talent was for hockey. To be able to play
at Amherst,
to be able to play Division III college hockey was the very pinnacle of what I could have accomplished, I think.
Yeah. I would add one thing that about what he said, that it really was part of my philosophy. I thought, and part of it was because I was spoiled, I'm sure, but I thought if he could do things in the summer times or even during the winter that were valuable, that had educational merit and could lead him in good directions and give him some opportunities sometimes that otherwise maybe he wouldn't have had, I thought that was better than working at McDonald's. And I'm not necessarily saying working that kind of job or working outdoors as a roofer or a lawnmower. Those are good things too. And I'm not saying you couldn't have done both, but that was my direction for him. I wanted him to do stuff that was fun, but valuable.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and it's all different, right? Like, I mean, I had the most, even working as hard as I worked in the summers I worked I was on Cape Cod. Like, people, like, it was, they'd come, it was the best week of their year, and I lived there, right? He lives there year round. So you live, it's how I feel about Delray Beach now. People come down here and it's like the best week of their year, and I live here 365, right? So it's not, there are benefits to also where you live. So, and we took advantage of that too from a financial standpoint, because everybody thought, oh my gosh, you're from the Cape, you're so rich. I'm like, you don't understand. We were there year round. We were the help. My dad was in the home improvement business. My mom was waitressing. I was mowing lawns and landscaping and working at the golf course. Like, we were the help for the people that came and visited. But it was great. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being that.
No, absolutely not. So guys, take us into kind of where we are in our lives when you were at that age. How different, when you look at what 50-year-old guys, 53 or 54-year-old guys are doing today, how different is it from what you view? How different is it from what you think you may have felt at this age in your early 50s? Or maybe the better question, the broader question is to ask, when you were in your early 50s, what were the thoughts that were on your mind at the time?
Well, I'm not a bit scared of the Back9. It's being on the last three that bothered me a little.
We got a ways to go to get there.
But anyway, in my early 50s, I think I was still worried about the family as a unit and still taking care of them. It's a very important part of my life. And then you kind of get from there to where we are now in a real hurry, freight train speed.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure. What were the decisions? Did you think about at that time how far you had come to what your individual goals or objectives might have been, what was still ahead of you, those kinds of decisions. Did you think about doing a different job or having a different career?
I've had to change careers a couple of times, but it's been a focus for me. I have to admit that. Up until the time I said I'd had enough when I turned 70, but probably was too important to me. But I got to the point where I just felt like I had obligations, and they required money.
Yeah.
It doesn't fall out of trees. Contrary to what some people believe, it doesn't fall out of trees, at least not the ones I shake. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think my philosophy changed that greatly. I think what you guys are doing is going to help that. Help people.
Well, thank you for that.
No, help people think more about it. I mean, I mean that.
I think that's an important point. We've talked about this on the show, Josh, is that it wasn't top of mind necessarily.
And that's what I was probing
That's what I think
for,
you're getting to. Yeah. Like a generation, like that's kind of the community we're trying to build, because guys, men in previous generations didn't take the time to really think about what the second chapter looked like of their life, what the second half and those important milestones that you hit. And I think that's the kind of community that we're trying to create, is to say, it's okay. It's okay to think about those things. And it's okay to hurt. You went through some really painful stuff when you were my age. Really painful. It's when you lost your dad and your brother. I mean, there was some major trauma at that time of your life. And I think it would have been nice to have like a community of people for you to be able to share some of that pain with. I mean, we don't have to go too much into it, but that's something that would have probably been useful to you. Would you agree?
Yes. Yes. I wish this kind of thing did exist back then. Yeah. And that's why I know you're getting more and more listenership, because people are paying attention. They want the message you're putting out, and it's great.
Dad, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like people are more open about talking about exploring disappointments, repositioning, regrets,
loss,
making sure that they have, loss, making sure that they have a focus on what they do want to accomplish?
Do you mean people my age, or looking at people your age?
Looking at people our age compared to when you were our age.
Yes, I don't think there's any question. It's different. When I was your age, putting aside for a moment my personal life, money really mattered, and everybody cared. It was aspirational. And whether you were poor or whether you were rich, in the world around me, that was the driving thing. And I would say people weren't even, well, I don't want to say this universally. In my world, I would say people weren't quite as family directed as they are today. I see all the people, like at my club, who are your age, and they're with their children all the time, whether they're going to their daughter's ballerina exhibit or whether they're going to their son's hockey game and coach the hockey games. In my era, it wasn't that true, although for me, it was. I was very involved with I didn't think much about money. I was the exact opposite. I hardly ever thought about money. I mean, I was making a nice living. Everything was okay. And I was on to my, I'll call it second family. And it was just like my first family. Josh's younger brother is 32 actually.
Yeah, 21 years younger. Yeah.
And Josh's mother and I had divorced, but she was and is a wonderful woman. And I had a great life helping to bring Josh up. And now here I was, 25 years later, 22 years later, whatever it is, I'm doing it again with another wonderful woman. And at that point, Josh was turning out. And I tried to do pretty much the same thing the second time. So
you better track record the first time, right? I mean, come on, if we're comparing. Right. Nobody's, all right. He won't listen. He doesn't listen to this.
They both turned out wonderful. But the point is, yes, I think my life was different because I was just carrying on. I was happy. I was doing all the things I wanted to do. And money wasn't that big of an object. But looking at your generation, I think you're way more tuned in, way more rounded, the people I know.
So I think the money thing is very, very, very interesting because I think men, by their very nature, are driven by money because we are taught to be the provider, whether that's right or wrong, or plenty of women support families. That's not where I'm going. I'm not going Harrison Butker on us here, but I will say that it's definitely a thing. Like you are driven by that. However, I do think in our generation we are starting to figure out a way, and again, why we're doing this show, is to balance like the mental health aspect and the other things that have to go along with that Otherwise, you wake up when you're your age and you say, what the F did I do all that for? Like, why did I make all that money? Or why was I that successful? And I'm alone. I don't have friends. I'm super unhappy. I'm depressed, all of those kinds of things. Like, that's not where you want to end up. And I think people in like this day and age, a lot of people we know don't want to end up like that.
Yeah. These, I don't think any of these guys are alone
like
or depressed. But just clarify
my dad's hardly. My dad's with my mom all the time. They've been married. We should say this. They've been married 54 years. It would be 55 years in October. So that's a whole nother story we can get into at some point in the show. But maybe we'll get into it now. What's the key to 54 years? I don't even know if Mom might be listening, so be careful.
Yeah, I have to be very careful. Yeah. I guess the only thing I came up with, the two big keys to being married a really long time. First of all, you have to find a woman that can be married for 54 years, and then you have to find a woman who's willing to be married for 54 years, and they have to be the same person.
And then they have to be willing to be married to you.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is another aspect of that.
That's the part. You got that right, boy.
You forgot
that's
part
the hard
three.
part.
You forgot part 3.
That's the hard part right there. I found the only one I found. I just found out last year she's been deaf for the last 53 years.
It would explain a few things. Yeah. And Dad, you'll be 45 years in just a week. Yeah, just in a week.
Wow.
And with my stepmother, she's been in my life since I was 7. I mean, 7 years old and married just before I turned 9.
Yeah.
I mean, so the same question, I guess, is to you, which is keys to being married to somebody neither Dennis or I made it that long and are unlikely to make it that long with the second one.
Unless we're only on the front 9 still.
Unless we're still on the front 9, yeah.
This is going to sound like a joke that you hear on TV. It's because she's fabulous. She does everything. She works. She makes a good living.
The true answer is she's crazy about him.
She, of course, somewhat helped raise Josh and totally raised Max. I mean, I was very involved with both boys, but she was a great mother, and she does everything. I do practically nothing. I'm a selfish, spoiled brat, and I don't know how, and maybe that's purposeful. I always used to tell Josh, I purposely tried not to do those things, but that's why. I mean, really, that's why. She's...
Well, I will say this about my mom is she, like, obviously 54 years is not like smooth sailing. It's not all roses. But I will say this about the two of them, and I see this every time I see them together. They truly love each other and take care of each other. And at this age in their life, that's all you really want at the core. You want them to really love each other and take care of each other. And that's what they do. When they say in good times and in bad, you start to have some bad times. You've had some health issues. We don't need to get into too much detail. And she's been by your side every step of the way and takes such good care. You do the same for her, right? You, like, when she's down and out, you're like a master chef, always cooking the meals. And so it's just, it's great to see. It's great to see that it's survived the test of time.
Can I interject something? I've listened to most, if not all, of the episodes. And
why haven't you listened to all of them?
I think I have by now, but I might have missed one in the middle somewhere. And they're really wonderful. And I'm not just saying that because they've made a little bit of a difference in my thinking. I think I've always been fairly introspective, but I think I've actually learned listening to this show how to be less selfish and to understand a little bit better what that means, because sometimes even things that you yourself think are selfless and the world would think are selfless, they have some selfishness in them too, because they make you feel good. They make you think I just did a good thing.
Do you have an example?
No, it's day to day. It's really more day to day than that. But I think I'm a little bit less selfish. I think about it when I start to do something. And if I can say to myself, this is mostly selfless, it's for her or something like that, even though I know there's some selfishness in it because I'll probably get a nice kiss. But there is selflessness in it. Or if I'm starting to do something like run out to the golf course the second time that day, maybe I think about it and don't quite do that.
Yeah, I will say this. I think a lot of women, their love language is to be served and love, like to be served a little bit, like to do things for them. They love it because they're so used to doing things for other people. So when you do things for them, it's appreciated tenfold. And I see that in my relationship. I feel like I feel good when I do something for my fiance because of what I get in return from her happiness. Like, I think that's what you're saying. And I can totally see that in my second chapter with the person I'm with now. And I think you see that too. You are the ultimate like service person for mom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I try to be. I try to do what I can for her. She helps me a lot, so I want to help her as much as I can.
Yeah.
The rewards of giving are way broader and deeper than the rewards of receiving.
No, I think that's true. I believe that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we realize that when we're younger men. I mean, maybe there are some people who have that innately. It's certainly not something I had earlier. It's something I had to learn along the way.
Right, right. What are some other like Back9 lessons that you might have learned from? My connection here is your dad, right? I think about your dad, how tough he was for you. I think one of the things, this is good. I hope you guys take this the right way. When you get to be where we are on the Back9, and I think you did this with your dad, you don't take everything your parents said and say, that's what I want to be. You take the good stuff, right? And then you take the other stuff that you don't want to be like them. And I know you're like that with your dad. I know you're like that. And I'm to some extent like that with you. Like, there's a lot of amazing things, but there's a lot of things I don't want to be like, right? Like, there's a few things that are, the reason I get into this is because your dad's the quintessential example of this. He had so many great qualities, but he's a tough MFer and not super loving. And you've said to me, like, I want to be different than that. So tell our audience about that.
He told me he loved me once, the very last time I saw him. He said, I love you, you're a good boy. But the last time I saw him, I never saw him alive again. But it's nice. He before he died, he told me that. But he worked hard, and I think, going back to what we've already talked about a bunch today, is that his focus was his 4 boys, raising his family, his wife, bringing home the bacon, you should say. That was his life. But they knew how to have fun, too. They had a bowl. They were in a bowling league, and they bowled every Wednesday, and they went out and danced on the weekends and partied, and they knew how to have a good time and mix it in. My father was a member of a golf club, too. He's a pretty good golfer. Over the years, and so they taught the lessons they thought they should teach.
Well, and that's a really good point. From the answer, Alan, that you just gave to the question that you just asked, Dennis, which is, we think of you guys as our dads, but of course you were also sons with dads and that relationship. So, how much do you think your relationship with your dad, framed your life?
Oh, dramatically. He was the opposite from what it sounds like your dad was, Alan. We were divorced. And I saw my dad on Friday nights and Saturdays most weeks, and Sundays when the Bears played, because he was a Bears season ticket holder. And I'm trying not to cry.
Oh, no.
He taught me how to have fun, and he lived for me. I mean, he just loved me to death. And I don't have a lot of later life lessons from him because he died when he was 62.
And you were?
I was in law school. I just started law school.
You're 21-ish?
Yeah, 20. Yeah. Whatever it was, 20, I think I was 23. I don't know, something like that. So I didn't get to see him grow old or learn those kinds of lessons. And he was a salesman and he was very successful, but he taught me how to have fun. Although there was a lot of intellectual stuff too. He aligned with the rest of his side of the family in that way. But mostly he loved me and always told me he loved me. And so I would say, the single most important thing in my life that I wanted to do, and hopefully I think I mostly did do, was be sure that I devoted myself to my 2 boys.
Awesome.
Do you guys think, I mean, Dad, you don't know the difference. Alan, you do know the difference between raising sons and raising daughters. We don't know the difference because we each have 2 girls. My father had 2 boys, and Alan, you have one of each. Do you think... I want to ask you, Alan, how is it different? Is it different raising a boy, raising a girl? That role, your role as a father, and that, because I think that's something that's interesting to all of our audience.
We left the spoiling of the son up to me, and we left the spoiling of the daughter up to Leslie. No.
And which one is more spoiled, do you think? It's him, right? No. Clearly it's him.
Oh, boy. We ain't going there.
I didn't think we were going to go there.
We ain't going down that road.
No, we're not. This is open game for anybody to listen to. So.
No, it's because it's a given. No. But yeah, I think that's, no, but it's a really good point. I think we both probably hoped to raise a son and it just didn't materialize. What is the difference? Like, what did you hope to instill in your son sitting across from you? And yeah, just.
Well, I think I feel like had a lot of success in regard to you. We did a lot together, and I think you expect a lot from a son, a lot more from a son than you probably would from a daughter. I did anyway. I think you had a harder line to toe because I guess just of my own.
Well, no, because girl dads always, I mean, it's true. Like, I can definitely say that it's, yeah, I mean, you dads and daughters are, like, it's a special thing. It's, you can be a little soft as a dad. It's a thing. That is a thing with your daughters. I don't think my daughters would say I was soft, but their mom was definitely the harder disciplinarian than I was. So that's why my kids, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about.
Very, very interesting, yeah.
Dad, do you feel you missed out on something by not having a girl?
Yes, I do. I wish I'd had a girl somewhere along the line, although I had 2 chances at 2 boys in 2 separate lives. Yeah. I mean, because they're 20 years apart. So I had one, and then I had the other one. And I think I mostly stayed the same, and they turned out wonderful but different. But yes, I wish I'd had a daughter. And because of a variety of circumstances and the fact that I lived in Chicago and Josh lived in Chicago for a few years when my granddaughters were little tiny, mostly he didn't. He lived in Buffalo and then in South Florida. And so I didn't get as much opportunities as I wish I had with my 2 granddaughters, who are now adults. Yeah. They're young women. And so I'll never have that opportunity, although I still have a 32-year-old son, and he's got a beautiful partner. And who knows, they may pop out a girl here one of these days. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Would you guys, I'm going to start with you, Dad. And this is a tough question. You might need a second to think about it. Would you do anything differently on the Back9? Do you think about, like, if I had it to do over again, here's what I would tell people to do?
Can I reframe that question? I think it's a good question. But I think I would say, looking back at 53, 54, what are the things that surprised you? What are the things that you think, man, I didn't see that coming? What are the things do you see that you said, boy, I'm glad I thought that through? In other words, what are the things that we and our peers who are listening in the audience should be aware of and should be thinking about as we move into the next several holes of our round?
Well, I just think you have to think more of other people maybe than of yourself as you get older, starting in the early 50s, looking forward. Because I will tell you that the years from 50 to where I am now, which is 78, go by awfully quick. It doesn't seem like it's going to be fast, but it's 28 years and they go by like lightning. So I tell people sometimes, total strangers, I said, don't go to sleep tonight. When you wake up tomorrow, that little kid on your lap's going to be graduating from college. So don't sleep too soundly tonight because it goes by quick. So just be a little introspective. You mentioned it earlier. You have to think about things a little more on the back 9 than maybe you did in the front 9.
My turn on that?
Yeah.
Well, I view it now that I'm 80 as sort of a third 9, because unlike a lot of the people on your show, I mean, what you've talked about a lot on your show is transitioning from a first career or a first marriage, and now you're 50 years old and you're moving on. And I didn't do that. I kept doing the same things I'd always done because now I had this second family that I've spoken about, and it was just like my first family. But looking backwards, I'd say the difference is, and why it's not quite the same kind of transition, is that when you're 50 years old, you can still build a kind of second or third life. But when you get to be older, there's some things you can't change, right? I mean, some things are inevitable. Your body fails somewhat. Your mind fails somewhat. And while I agree in, what's the phrase? Not giving up, don't fight the dying of the light. Yeah. That's important, and you should do it. But looking back on it, the thing that I didn't quite anticipate was how, somewhat because of just getting older, relationships change. My friends move. My business relationships change. The son takes over the business, who was my client, instead of the father, and he has his own friends. And so much as I think I've tried to stay relevant and stay involved, it's almost impossible to do. It's very difficult to have as many friends, to be quite as involved in your business as you were, even your friends. I have a group now of like 10 guys at my club who we call the old poops, but because they're around, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. There's some things. I'm still working. I still practice law, but it isn't totally avoidable no matter how much you want to prevent it.
One of the things that I'm kind of proud of what you said about listening to this show and being more introspective and stuff. And Dad, I think you are too from me. Like, you taught me a ton, but I think I've helped you with Start at Yes. I think I've helped you. Like, you were kind of a Start at No for a while person. Like, at least it was tough to get you to yes. You'd get there. You were always a very it's not a negative thing. So you weren't a negative person. But I think it maybe comes from your dad. It was like, you can't do that. There's no way you can do that. And we kind of both together overcame that because I started to do that. And then I don't know, maybe you could weigh in on that because you've even said that that's a good mantra to have.
I love it. I mean, you still use it a lot. I started yes everybody should add that phrase into their life because you can always get to know, but start at yes. If somebody asks you to do something and it's possible. Yeah, just do it.
It's like you going on a cruise, right, with your brother. You could easily said no, right? But you're like, it's 4 days. I can go. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. Might not have happened a while ago. So I like that. I like the fact that the roles can be reversed a little bit and we can help each other. It's not just mentee. We can mentor each other at this age. And I think that's an important thing for our audience to understand too, is to think about the relationships with your parents, that it can be that way and not like as one-sided as it was when you were like a kid growing up. It can be that sort of, and that's sort of what I was getting at. Like, are there things that you say, hey, I wish I had started at yes sooner. I wish I had started at yes back in the
way
day.
Back.
Yeah, way back. And maybe, again, it's not regret. That's the wrong word, but you just think about those things. And that's why I think it's important to bring up.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Josh, at some point, I'm not sure when it was, because he was very competitive, just like you, Dennis, and in business and sports and his career. But at some point, he started to become more spiritual, I thought. And my first reaction was to make fun of him, really. I'm sure that's
true. You did. Yeah.
And I still do sometimes.
Yes, you do.
Just for the hell of it.
We all do, by the way.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Just for the hell of it.
Everyone gangs up on me.
But I can see how it's improved his life, and I'm learning just a little bit from him about it. And I think I'm a little bit better because of it. And my younger son, he's not like Josh at all. He's a wild and crazy guy and a terrific guy, very talented, artistic guy. But he really challenges my thinking about a lot of stuff. Political stuff. He's making me more left-wing than I was. And in terms of culture, both of them do this, but it's a little bit more important with Max because he's so much younger. At least help me give or teach me a little bit about what's going on in modern culture because I'm terrible about it. I'm Frank Sinatra. I'm not, what's the name of the rock group that's the metal Trivium. I don't know about that. But Max has really helped me with that, at least to try. So, yes, I think it's good. That part's good, to listen to your children.
One of the things, my mom lost a friend fairly recently, and she said one of the things she said to me that kind of stuck with me was, it's really hard when you lose your friends at this age, and we do. And I've lost a good college friend, passed away, and I think about that. If there's one thing I'm dreading about what's coming is losing. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to be first. Right. I mean, I hope to be here for a long time. But that aspect, how you grow up with people, you share your dreams with theirs, when then your lives are led. So take us through that. The seeing your friends leave us.
Too many, and I think he would agree. You don't know how many years you have left, so you have to try to have those years be as good as they can be for you and for your family, because you don't know whether you have 1 day or 10 years. Right. You don't have any idea.
12th hole or 18th hole, right? I mean,
exactly. Well, I said 17 or 18.
Well, I think that's what happens when you lose people around you. And I do think that happened to you. I think you realized how precious life was when you lost your brother and your dad really close together. We talked about that earlier in the show. I think you really, that was probably the first moment, and you were right at our age, 53, 54, when you realized, and I think we're seeing that, I'm feeling that now when people pass, is that you do realize you never know what hole you're on, right?
Never know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've just lost my 3 best friends from college in the last couple of years. But when the latest one, Les, died, it struck a chord that I can't quite figure out. It has really made me look back, and I see us having fun in college, studying, chasing girls, going to sports, playing sports, all the things 20-year-olds do. And I see those pictures, but it has another selfish aspect to it, which is I do feel sort of better about myself. I feel healthy. I do the things I've always done. It's mostly luck. I don't think I can make a connection that they did something and so they're dead and I did something and so I'm alive. I don't think it's like that. It's mostly luck, but there's a certain real good feeling about it. I know that sounds sort of mean and selfish, but I'm here and I'm still getting to have fun and do my life, and that makes me happy.
Well, I think that's good. I mean, I think that's an enriching feeling because you want to have that healthy, I'm going to be here for a while mentality, right? Like it's what kind of energy you put out. Even with all your physical limitations, you're like, I'm going to be here for a while. Like you're not going anywhere. And like, I love that. I mean, that's the kind of positive energy that's going to keep you around for a while. And so I think that's tremendous.
That's all we have. That's what we have to do. We have to stay positive because that's what we have. And looking forward is more fun than anything else.
Oh, for sure.
You have to do.
For sure.
I want to pick up on something you said about like being a little more spiritual and the Josh thing. And I'll tell you what struck me recently is that everybody has, and nobody should tell anybody what their spirituality should be. Everybody has that individually in them, and it should be kind of your own choice. But I'll tell you what's become more spiritual for me, and it's called awareness. It's called just noticing things that you ever notice. If you want to take one minor step in your life towards being a little more spiritual, look at a tree that you wouldn't have looked at. Look at the way the wind is blowing. Look at the water in a different way if you're at the ocean than you did before, and think about that wave is the last time that wave's going. Like just little things like that. And all of a sudden that presence that you have in that moment gives you some spirituality, and it takes you out of all the stress and drama in your life. And that is what I've started to do. I've got a little of that from you. I've got a little of that from my own self-reflection and study. But if I could just tell anybody, like, you don't have to be like a Reiki master, all those kinds of, all the other stuff. There's little things you can do to be more spiritual in your life and be more aware.
Can I give one little example?
Yeah,
it's so good that you said that. So Josh knows that I'm an avid golfer and what's the right word? Somewhat obsessive about it. And I always have been. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I appreciate the beauty of my club and the elevations and everything. But this year, for the first time, I've observed some things like a kid, this is where I want my ashes thrown or buried. But there's a spot behind the 13th green of the white course. We have 2 courses, a red and a white course. And there's a creek that runs along the left side of the hole up to the green, and right at the end of the creek and also the back of the green, most afternoons I drive my cart back there, and maybe I have a Coke or something as I've practiced or played golf, and I might make a phone call or 2 while I'm sitting there, but it is such a peaceful spot, and I see these sandhill cranes with their babies, and the ducks with their little itty-bitty babies, and it's just a beautiful spot. And I can just sit there for 20 minutes, even 30 minutes, and like you were talking about on one of your shows, a recent show or 2 ago, sometimes I can sit there and my mind just wanders off into nowhere. Once in a while, a thought creeps in. You guys talked about this on one of the shows, and that's okay. I don't usually kick it away. I give it a few minutes, and then I go back to the reverie of just being there, which is not really something I used to do.
That's great.
And it's a beautiful spot. I mean, I don't know if they still are there, but when I was a kid, there were great blue herons that would feed in that creek quite a bit. They're beautiful, big birds, and it's a very tranquil spot in a very tranquil golf club. So, all right, so a couple of questions as we move towards the end of this. The first is this. You guys are 80 and 78. Whether you are here with us another 20 days. We hope it's much more than that, or 20 years, whatever it is, right? I'm just making a now and a down the road. What are the things that you still want to do?
Spend more time with my family.
We can make that happen. That's an easy one. Yeah.
Well, of course, I want to spend more time with the boys. They don't live in my town, and I want to travel more to see them wherever they are. Max is in Los Angeles, basically, and Josh is here in South Florida, or he's really in Central Florida. But so I want to do that. But on the other hand, I like what I do, and I've always liked it. And I mean, I've been very lucky. So I hope I can just continue to do. I like still practicing law and playing golf and going to the Cubs games and
Bears games. You still like Bears games, really?
Yeah.
They're going to be good this year.
They're going to be good this year.
Okay.
This will be in the first episode. My dad alluded to the fact that my grandfather had season tickets in 1932.
I know, it's
this
incredible.
will be our 93rd season of being Chicago Bears season ticket holders.
That's incredible. That is absolutely extraordinary. That's like bearing the lead. That's big time. That's big time.
And once every 20, 25 years, they have a good team. So
well, hopefully this is
Green Bay.
Hopefully this is the year. I will say that I am very blessed. When Dad talks about spending more time with the family, it's not like that doesn't already happen. Yeah. I can say that, and you've seen my family. You can see how close I am to my cousins. The one thing that he and his brothers have done, and the family has done a really good job of, is breaking bread together, being a family together. Really, I'm going to get choked up now. Really important, like those centers of your time together. And as a result, we're a really close family. We really are at so many levels. All the cousins still get together, and it's great. I mean, and I don't see that changing. It's something we've always strived to do, to the point that we're having a very small wedding this year, but we're doing multiple additional parties so that the families can celebrate with us, because it wouldn't be right to not have the families involved in some way. So yeah, it's really, and that's been instilled from you and your brothers and mom and my sister. I mean, we've stayed very close as a family.
Can I ask one more question before we get the glasses going here?
Oh, yeah.
So that little cue for you.
That was a great cue.
Thank you very much. I tried to be sly. So, one of the things that I think motivated us to have this episode was that I was recalling that when you went to your 50th college reunion, which was probably 7 years ago or so, 8 years ago, you were very involved in that, and you came back from it. I remember you telling me, boy, this isn't really interesting because we've lived our lives. There's life ahead, but we've had our children. They've had their children. We've lived our productive work lives, even though you're still practicing law now. Most people were done. And the next year, I was going to have my 25th. And as it happened, my college sent out a questionnaire for a booklet. And one of the questions was, what have you done in the 25 years since you graduated? And having had the conversation with you, I said, I think this is the wrong question. The question is, what are you going to do with the next 25 years? And so, you're laughing, Ellen, and it's funny, but it's true. I mean, I don't want to look back. I want to look at what's next. So I would ask each of you, what would your advice be to us, to our peers in our audience who are like us, whether men or women, whatever it might be, for one thing that we should pay attention to over the next 25 years? It may be different from, I think we're already in agreement on spend more time with your family, but if there's anything else that you can add to that.
Well, I don't know. I have, I think, come up with my own religion. I grew up Episcopalian, but my current religion is I just want to treat people the way I'd like to be treated, the golden rule. And that's my whole religion. If that's wrong, it's wrong. I don't know what to do, but that's how I feel.
And you have found that over the last however length of time, that is the piece that has served you the best?
Yes.
Great.
That's a good one. That's great.
Yeah, I love that.
It's easy for me. It's do what you love to do. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, follow your passions.
I mean, you boys are both boys. You're successful men. And, I mean, you may have other goals. There may be things in your mind that you love doing that you're not doing, or that you're sure you would love if you did do it. But
pickleball.
I'm gonna get in a pickleball league. It's funny that you mentioned that. Next couple of weeks, I'm joining one. Yeah.
Do what you love to do, no matter what.
Yeah,
that's what I'd say.
I need to. You know what? This got me to thinking. I need to play more golf. I love it so much too. And you get to do it and the smile on your face, the joy it brings you. I mean, that's simple. And I will tell you, on one of our early shows, I said to you guys, I said, well, because we remembered that time I played last summer on your birthday.
Yeah.
And I said, as I watched you two walking down the fairway together, I said, and it bears repeating, I said, enjoy every minute that you do this because you don't know when your last round is with your dad.
You did. You said that.
Because I never knew. He's had a lot of physical ailments and he hasn't been able to play golf again. And I can't even remember. We played so much golf together over the years, so much. But I don't remember the last time. I don't remember because I thought we were all, for the last several years, I thought we were going to play again. Yeah. And so just
but here's the funny,
enjoy every second of that.
Here's the funny thing about this. We're supposed to play tomorrow at the day after we record this. And my dad, who's 80, still drives about 240 yards. It's unbelievably impressive. And I can't play because I have an injury.
So he has a hip flexor. He's on IR with a hip flexor.
Hip flexor injury.
So he and my father, Josh and my father, are going to be riding around in the golf cart harassing us.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be playing with your dad and my uncle and my cousin. Yeah. And so you guys are going to be the gimps in the golf cart together.
That's exactly. We're just going to find out who's going to drive. So
yeah. Well, you're going to drive.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to drive. But yeah, it's been great having you guys. We have one of our guests and sponsors of the season has been Bushwood Spirits, and it's all tied into Caddyshack. And our good friend Brad Carpenter was nice enough to send us a few bottles. This is called the Front 9 Bourbon. We've talked about this before. It's Back 9 Bourbon sold out already, so we couldn't get any of that. But this is the Front 9 Bourbon. It's aged 7 years. It is outstanding. And Janine in the other room did bring a fifth glass here. Janine, you're welcome to come in here and join us. I'm like, why are there 5 glasses here? Of course I know why there's 5 glasses here, because Janine's has a fifth glass. So you have a little bit
come
here.
Drink. Come have one with us.
Yeah, you did.
So,
cheers.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. This has been so amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, dads. Thank you for all you've done for us. So, Josh, I think we were hoping that the Father's Day edition would be spectacular, and I think it obviously lived up to our expectations. But I think the important thing to say on Father's Day is, and we didn't really get this in that much into it, but I think both of our dads showed why they taught us to be a good dad, right? There were so many elements there that we have taken in from them. And on this Father's Day, I want to say happy Father's Day to you on this Father's Day week and these episodes. And I think we know what we've always known, but why we've been able to be good dads.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Father's Day to you and to all the dads out there. And hopefully all of you who are dads and others learn something from our dads. I did too. There were some stories from my dad that I didn't know, alongside certainly stories from your dad that I didn't know. Yeah, no, I mean, I think what I take away from this is the importance of fatherhood, right? I mean, it's something I've known intrinsically as a dad. It's something I've known intrinsically as a son, watching my dad and having him be an example for me as a dad, and helping hear their perspectives, people that we really respect and love, about what's coming next for us over the next 15, 25, 35 years.
What's amazing too is, both of them showed so much pride in us, and it makes me proud, right? When your dad's, one of the things you really want is your parents, but as a man, you want your dad to be proud of you, right? Like, I think we look towards that, and they both are. So I listened to that, right, and had a sense of pride, and then it also gave me some pride into being the dad I am with my kids. So I think that came out for me a lot in this episode.
I would add to that, because yes, but I would add to that, how proud we are of them and the lives that they have led to this point, with much more still to go. And hoping that my kids have even a fraction of that, of respect, of love for me, for you, right? And our roles as dads. I mean, the roles that we really have as fathers, more potential to impact a person, our children, and other children, their friends, whoever it might be, in that role, probably more than any other role we have in our lives.
They have a lot of responsibility for what they poured into us to create where we are now, right? Like, because we talked about this, we're sons and we don't have sons.
Right.
So there is a difference there, right? Like, we have this dynamic with them that we don't have with our daughters. It's a completely different dynamic. And that's really special. And I think I'm going to take away from this is I'm going to think more about it. And I think maybe I'm sure most of our audience does, or a lot of them, but maybe you take a little extra time to think about it on this Father's Day of what your dad has meant to you and what you've meant to him too, because I think that there's two sides of this, and this whole idea that it's not a mentor relationship on the Back9 anymore. It's not just, they're not a mentor anymore. You're like friends and you're helping each other. The things that they said to us about how much we're helping them, they're listening to the show, we're talking to them, we're giving them insights. You can be that too on the Back9 for your dads, for your parents. I think that's a interesting component of what came out of this.
I do too. And the corollary to that is that 15 or 20 or 25 years from now, when we're in their position, we should be able to look at our children, even though in both of our cases, it's going to be girls saying this. And maybe it's their significant others who are helping us with that too, who are the men. But to remember that we can learn from them, because getting out of that role is having to guide our children and letting them guide us too.
I'll take that a step further.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to learning stuff from my kids now. Like I absolutely am learning things from my daughters. And I think because my parents and my father is more open to learning things from me, it's making me more open to learn things from my kids earlier than I may have. We can be the authority for only so long, but they're smart. They're intelligent young women. They're learning things that I don't know. I can learn from them. And I think that's the other component of this. We can flip this around and say, okay, as parents, yes, we're still going to mentor our kids, but they can mentor us even now in their 20s and we're in our 50s.
Yeah, for sure. I think back to when we first together dreamed up the concept for this episode and what my expectations were, my hopes were. I don't know that anybody in the audience feels this way. I hope you do, but exceeded them. 1,000, I mean, just by miles. I'm so thrilled that they wanted to do this, were engaged in this, participated and were present for this, had so many great insights.
I'll take it even one step further. We have a time capsule that can never be taken away from us. Never. That's a big deal.
Yeah, 1,000%, for sure.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Back9. This has been really special. Happy Father's Day. This is after Father's Day now, so happy Father's Day, celebrating all the amazing dads out there and what you have done for your kids like our dads have done for us. Thanks so much.
Thanks for being with us on the Back9.